Hi, I'm Pastor Dave, and once again, I will say thank you to Lindsey for allowing me to appear again this week. And I was just recently asked if I knew of anything or heard of anything about an arch being dedicated or a ceremony taking place in New York City. And I know what they're speaking about, and Lindsey does a great job of keeping you up to date on current events, but this is one that might have slipped through, and I've not had a lot of people talking about this. But September 19th, just over a little month ago, there was a dedication at New York City Hall Park. Now, there was a ceremony there, and ceremonies taking place at the City Park in New York City is not a big deal. It happens all the time. This is down in Lower Manhattan, and it's the oldest city hall in all of America, so that they oftentimes do ceremonies. And the mayor was here for this ceremony, and the deputy mayor was here, and they had a 50-foot arch that was covered with a tarp, and they had music playing in the background. They brought the tarp down. They revealed this arch. And the question is, what's it all about? This is a replica to the arch that was in front of the Temple of Baal over in Syria. Now, the original was destroyed by ISIS in October 2015. So there's a group that has gone out and built this replica. It was supposed to be in New York in April. It was supposed to be in Times Square, and that was canceled. The arch then went to London, and it was on display in London for a while. Then they did bring it to New York, not in Times Square, but to New York City Hall Park. And when this happened, I was amazed at some of the verbiage that you saw coming out. The New York Times, it said that there will be replicas made of this arch, and it's to be placed, this pagan temple is to be placed across the world. They want to have 1,000 different cities that will host this arch. And the New York Times says there are very few cities in the world that has as much the definition in their architectural as New York City does. I mean, you have the Empire State Building, you have the Brooklyn Bridge, you have the Statue of Liberty. So architect in New York is very important. So the arch fit right in. And the New York Times went on to say it will be uncanny and thrilling to see this arch set up against the backdrop of the great lights of New York City. All right, uncanny and thrilling to see this arch against the backdrop of the lights of New York City. The mayor spoke at this ceremony. The deputy mayor, New York City deputy mayor, spoke, and she said, quoting her, "What could be more appropriate than to have this symbol of freedom in front of City Hall?" I just want you to think about these quotes and what's being said here. The New York Times went on to say that a landmark Roman arch stood proudly once again in New York City. The Romans built this arch, but the Temple of Baal is where this arch was in front of. And there was one road through the main city back in this area in Syria. And if to go to the Temple of Baal, you had to go through this arch. And it's the only way. Once you go through the arch, everybody knew where you were going. They knew where your attention was. And the question is, what was the big deal about this arch? See, this was the arch that led to the temple of the Canaanite god Baal. Now, false religions goes all the way back to Genesis, and cultures come and cultures go, but the false religion stays the same. And sometimes they have a different name. The culture will call a different name. In Mesopotamia or Assyria or Babylon or Egypt, the gods were called differently, but it was the same god. It was the same false god. It was Moloch, or it was Marduk, or it was Orion, or it was Ra from Egypt. The female counterpart was Ishtar, or she was Asherah, or Athena. These are all different names for gods and goddesses. And in the temple, this was worship. Now, you need to understand what took place here. This is the area of the Canaanites. The Canaanites, many people know the story of Jericho. Joshua and Jericho, and the walls come following down. And there was a prostitute there named Rahab. And she, when the spies were sent in to check out the land, Joshua said, "Go check it out." The spies were taken in, protected by Rahab, and she was saved, her and her family was saved from destruction when the walls fell because of support for the spies. But Rahab said, and she was a Canaanite woman, Rahab said, "My people are aware of your people and aware of your God." In fact, in Joshua chapter 2:8, they said that our hearts melt and our courage fails because of your God. We've seen what he did with the Red Sea. We saw how he gave you power to have victory over the Ammonites. And she goes on and repeats things that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did for the Israelites. And she says, because of that, because of who he is and what he did for you, we have fear. So she's very clearly saying the Canaanites are aware of the God of Israel, but they just choose to reject him. And they follow false religion. The Canaanite gods, to understand a ceremony, and it gets kind of graphic. I'm not going to apologize for that, because you have to understand what was taking place in New York City. And what we were saying was a wonderful thing, especially against the backdrop of New York City lights. The Canaanite gods participated in child sacrifice. The god of the Canaanites, the temple of Baal, there was a bronze statue there. I mean, this arch is 50 foot tall. The temple is bigger than that. And this bronze statue had the head of an ox, the body of a man, and the arms were out erect. And there would be music in the background. Drums would be playing. And they would come and they would lay their children. They would sacrifice their children. There'd be fire coming up in the arms. And the children would be placed into the arms of the statue, and they were sacrificed. That's the worship that took place in this temple that we are putting the arch in remembrance of. That's what happened. And now the adults that gathered around doing these ceremonies, the drums are playing to drown out the cries and the screams of these infants as their flesh is being burned. And the adults would gather around the altar and gather around this and just participate in bisexual orgies. Again, it's graphic, but that's what happened. And when you look at today's world, unfortunately, we're not much further from what was taking place there. We build this replica of an arch. It probably would have been the real arch if ISIS didn't destroy it. You have to wonder, why didn't they create, some kind of Christian symbol? The ISIS has destroyed many Christian symbols over in Iraq and Syria. Why not bring those back and put those on display? No, they put the arch on display. And when you understand where our world is today, I mean, back then they sacrificed thousands of children. We've sacrificed millions of children. In fact, we made it legal. When you look at the orgies that took place, the bisexual orgies that took place around the altar, well, we have that lifestyle now. We've passed laws to allow that lifestyle. And those who weren't participating back in the temple of Baal, they would be watching as these other adults participated in these lustful activities. Well, we still have people watching that lustful activity. And we've created a multi-billion-dollar pornography industry. So we have abortion, we have child sacrifice, we have homosexuality, same-sex marriage, we have different lifestyles that we say are okay now, and we have pornography. I guess we're not much different now than we were back in the time of the Babylonians and the Assyrians and the Egyptians. The temple of Baal, that's what took place there. This arch that was out in front of it. Now, there's more to say about this. I'm somewhat limited in time. I will end with this thought. When the arch was in, the temple of Baal was here, and the arch was somewhat, a small distance in front of it. Again, one road went there, so if you went through the arch, there was no place else to go but to the temple. And where they placed this, it was originally supposed to be in Times Square. That was canceled. Months later, it comes back, and it's in New York City Hall Park, downtown Lower Manhattan. If you trace the distance from where this arch was last month, September of 2016, if you trace the distance from the arch to ground zero, it's the same distance as where the arch stood in Syria to the temple of Baal. I don't know if that's symbolic, if that has meaning, but we've kind of placed it in the same place. And if you look at why God brought wrath upon the Israelites, it's because that they participated in the Canaanite worship. When Israel went into the Promised Land, when Joshua brought them in, God told them to rid the land of the Canaanites, man, woman, child, animal, everything, because God knew if they did not clear the land of the Canaanites and the Israelites moved into the Promised Land, it wouldn't be long before they would be associating with the Canaanites, and then it wouldn't be long before they would be worshiping the gods of the Canaanites. And that's exactly what happened to Israel. And God brought wrath, judgment upon Israel because of that. And you look at America, and we're in the same situation, doing the same things as they did back when they worshipped in the temple of Baal. Anyhow, I wanted to bring that to you this week. It was brought up to my attention. If you want more information on this, if you want to see more articles about this, or other things on end times in general, please go to the website. Again, my name is Pastor Dave. The website is interpretingthetimes.com. If you look that up, it's all one word, interpretingthetimes.com. I would love to have your thoughts, your feedback, your comments on that. And once again, I thank you for Lindsey and his graciousness in allowing me to be on this website. So I hope this information will at least make you think, if not provide some thought for you to really consider where we're at as a nation and what we need to be doing. So I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Until then, God bless you, and we'll see you later. Thanks. Take care.